Welcome to Uncancelled Faith, a podcast that strives to break the culture of division which so often separates Christians from one another. I'm your host, Hannah Rose Russell, and I'm so excited to have you here today. This podcast is an Inspired Truth production and aims to create a safe space for people to bring new perspectives on topics that are frequently controversial or fall victim to cancel culture. Through thought-provoking conversations, we will challenge the norms, embrace God's unique calling on our lives, and find unity in our shared love for the Messiah. So grab yourself a drink and pull up a chair, because Uncancelled Faith starts now.
Okay. Ready?
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome back to the podcast. As you can tell, this episode is going to look and sound a little differently because I am not with my usual setup in my office. In fact, I am in Thailand right now with my first in-person guest. So I am very excited about today's episode. It has been 5 years in the making.
Yeah.
5 years in the making. And I'm just so excited to introduce you guys to my friend Soleil. And so you can hear her story, and we're just going to share some testimony about how we met, how God is leading us in life, and also just what he's doing on this trip, and as we get ready to go home tomorrow.
Don't talk about good times.
No, we won't talk about tomorrow. So anyway, please welcome to the show, Soleil Bourdon.
Hello. Applause. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you decided to do this on our trip. I was hoping that we could. So
Let's hope it goes well.
I'm sure it will. We're gonna do great. So anyway, for those who do not have the pleasure of knowing you, would you like to share a little bit about yourself, where you are from?
Yeah, so I am from the States. I grew up in the eastern coast of the good old USA. And then as soon as I graduated, I zipped on out of there and moved abroad. But yeah, I grew up in a Christian family. They worked in ministry my entire life. They still do. So I got to learn about Christ from a really young age. So I've been very blessed to be able to grow up with a family that's God-fearing my entire life. So yeah.
How old were you when you accepted Yeshua, Jesus, into your life?
I was 7 at the time.
7.
Yeah. And then when I was in my early teens, I rededicated because I was like, I was so young. I was like 6 or 7. What if that wasn't really it? And then at 13, I was like, okay, just in case, because, you're so young at that age. I was like a little confused, but not confused, but yeah.
No, I feel like we all do that though, because we're growing up in a Christian home. So we do get, I think it tends to be 6 or 7, where we accept Christ into our heart. And then that it's like, okay, we're saved and everything, but we're still young. We're still going off of our parents' faith. Yeah. And then once we reach teenage years, it's like, oh, we actually need to do something about our faith. We can't just say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. There's some activity in that and some action. So
for sure. When I think I was like 3 or 4, I was like, I want to get baptized. My parents were like, no, you need to wait. So they made me wait till like 7. And even then they're like, we want you to wait longer. But I was too like, no, I was like, I want to get baptized now. So
were you like the little boy? Do you remember that viral video where the little boy is about to be dunked?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do it.
And he just jumps in. Yeah, I was basically that. So yeah. And then like later on, it's like, I'll just rededicate just to, re-satisfy the relationship between me and God personally. So, yeah.
Nice.
Fun times.
Yeah. Cool. So then, okay. So you came to faith, you grew up in a Christian home, and you went to college. What did you study in college?
So I double majored because, that sounded fun. I did creative writing. It was English with an emphasis of creative writing, and then history is my second major.
If y'all haven't guessed, we connected through books and things, as you can tell with the back. I think we have enough reading for the trip. But so then how did we meet? So it was about 5 years ago. We were on Connie Lynn Cosette's launch team on Facebook, right?
Yeah, it was Oh my gosh, her second series?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was after the Out of Egypt, so it was her second series. When it was the new series, and I was so excited about reading the book, and I was going to Israel finally. And then I posted, "Hey, I have the book and I'm in Israel and I'm reading it." And you're like, "Oh, hey, I live there." So
yeah, so we could have met straight away. We could have met within like a week of knowing each other. Yeah.
Actually, it might have been like 3 days because I posted that when I was in Israel. And then you're like, "Oh, I'm here in the same day." So I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." It might creep if I asked to meet up.
I know. And then I was thinking it, so I was like, "Oh, maybe I should do it." But our introvert side won out and we did not. But then you messaged me and you were just like, "Where are the bookstores in Israel?" They're very hard to find. There's only 2. I mean, 2 brands, but they're all in malls and just weird places. So
yeah, because I kept walking through the market and I saw like 3 English books, but I was like, that's not a bookstore. So where's the actual books?
It is still very difficult to get books. We still have them.
It's all online now.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, so that is how we met, and we kind of talked here and there throughout the years. And
I followed your blog. It's like, wow, you're so cool.
Thank you. And then, of course, COVID hit, and you were still at school, and I decided to open up a young women's prayer group with some friends. I was just like, maybe we just all need to get together, because I was part of a prayer group with all older women, of course, as always, story of my life. And my mom was just like, "Why don't you get girls your age to come and join you?" And I was like, I could, but who would I ask? So
my mom still asks me that. She's like, "You should do that in Korea." I'm like, yeah. Definitely.
I mean, you should, because I didn't know who would come, and I was like really nervous. But I was like, let's put some feelers out. And I even asked girls, I was like, "I don't know if you are, but if you are," and they're like, "No, I'm not." Like, I was like, "Okay, but I mean, if you want to join, we're just gonna come pray together. We need some unity in this time and some hope." So yeah, so Soleil joined, and you were one of the regulars.
I was the quiet regular.
You were the quiet regular. I know. I was like, "Oh, this girl is never gonna talk. How am I gonna like pull it out of her?" But then, and then we just started talking off.
Yeah, because everyone else kind of faded away, and we just ended up being the only ones at some point. So we're like, "Hey, what you doing today?" And I'm not doing anything. Let's call them. Kind of turned into like an everyday thing after that.
And already at that time, you were kind of itching to leave America, right?
Yeah, because I had planned before COVID broke out to like go travel abroad for fun. And then when COVID hit, I was like, okay, I guess instead of like traveling, I guess I'll just move.
So there is a reason why we're meeting in Thailand. It's not just let's have an exotic vacation somewhere halfway across the world. Like we said, it's been 3 years, and we needed to meet in the middle. So where do you live now?
I live in South Korea.
Woo!
Yay. South, not north.
Yeah.
Emphasis on that for people that are very confused. They're like, where do you live? Even the posts, I'm sending posts to when I was first coming, and they're like, which Korea? I'm like, obviously the South. Like,
I know most people would be like that. I mean, I guess you can visit North Korea, but no one could live there, and no one would want to. Yeah. Anyway, So tell us about what led you to South Korea. I was about to say North. What led you to South Korea, what you're doing there. Yeah, and just that whole process.
Yeah, long story. But fun. Gosh, I guess like in the middle. So right when COVID started, I started down the rabbit trail of watching like life abroad, life in so-and-so country. Because, you know, what else do you do when there's a pandemic and you're stuck at home? You're like, I want to go see where other people are living. So it kind of I ended up watching a lot about like Korea. There was a little bit of like some other countries, but mostly Korea. And then it kind of transitioned into teaching in Korea. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, look at them doing their life, going out and, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. But then as time went on, I was like, okay, well, what am I doing after graduation? I don't know what I want to do. Like I do, but because of COVID, it like changed a lot of things and the jobs weren't really in that field anymore. So I was like, well, let me go work abroad for a couple of years and then I'll come back and, you know, get back in there. So I started researching what countries can I go to, what countries that I want to live in. And it kind of was surprisingly in like Asia, because I never had a desire before to like really go into Asia, like India and like that kind of area. Yeah. But never like Korea and Japan, because everyone else I knew was obsessed with those countries, but I never was.
You weren't? I thought you were learning Korean and stuff, and you always.
I never learned until I came.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I literally came and I like watched K-dramas. That was it. But like that was like COVID times.
Yeah.
That wasn't like high school, like
Wow,
BTS obsession.
okay.
There was never that. Like
All right.
everyone I met coming here was like, oh my gosh, BTS, I've been a fan since like forever. And I'm like, I found out only a couple years ago. So I'm the imposter. Yeah, I was more like Europe. I really wanted to go Europe because of the history. That's what I studied with my major, was all like the World War I, World War II, and then pre that too. So I was thinking more like Spain or like Australia, because there was a few different programs there, but you had to pay for those programs. And then COVID was like, actually, you can't come here anymore.
Yeah.
So
They were pretty strict.
That was kind of like the beginning of God, like just like shutting the doors for those other countries I was looking into, because it was first Australia, and then it was like, okay, well maybe Spain, but Spain didn't pay very well. And I was like, okay, well let's go to Asia then. I'm like, what about Japan? Japan's shut their doors. I'm like, okay, so obviously not there. And I'm like, okay, well Korea, because that culture looks really interesting. I'd be curious to live there. Started to apply, and then it just kind of went on from there. Just like doors kept opening, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is it. Like it was very stressful preparing, because I was procrastinating doing homework and finishing my TEFL certificate online. So I'd be in the library working for my work study. And I just was like working on my teaching certificate so I could apply for the job. And anytime anybody's coming over, they're like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to try and apply to work abroad. So we'll see how this goes. So they knew before my whole family was that I was going to go abroad. I didn't tell them until after.
I know. I remember that. I remember you didn't tell them until you got the acceptance letter, right?
Yeah.
And what was their reaction? Were they happy? Were they?
There was mixed emotions.
Okay.
My mom's always been like, she's always known I've wanted to like go abroad at some point. And so she was very happy, but I was very hesitant because like I'm the oldest daughter. I'm also the firstborn. So like those two mixed together, it's like a lot of pressures and responsibility, and like I didn't tell them I was looking to begin with. Right. So they had no idea. I was like, oh, okay, Korea looks like a really interesting place and stuff. So I sent in the application, and then I wasn't even going to tell them until I passed the interview. But I ended up was like, hey, just so you know, because that's what it was. They wanted me to buy a car. Oh, that's why I told them I wasn't going to tell them. Yeah, they wanted me to buy a car, and I was like, I don't really want to buy a car right now. And like, well, why not? And I'm like, well, I kind of want to save the money. And they're like, well, why? You need a car to work. And then that's why I had to tell them this. Okay. But yeah, so they were taken back, of course. And then once my dad got kind of over the shock of me being interviewed by a black screen, because I got interviewed and there was nobody on the video.
Oh, wow.
He was like, is this a legit program? And I was like, yeah, it's a government funded program.
That's still...
He was a little nervous.
Yeah. And your dad's also a first responder. So he's instilled a lot of the stranger danger, being cautious, or like kind of mindset.
Yeah. And the program itself is very like last minute, because how I applied, the program is you basically don't know anything. You apply, they like your application, you go through one interview. They're like, okay, cool. Maybe we'll pass you or not pass you. Then you get through, and then like, we don't know what city you'll end up. We don't know what school you'll end up until like 1 month before. So you're like packing to move to a country, and you have no idea where in the country you're moving to.
So that's really a leap of faith.
Yeah.
There's no set plans, set anything. You're just like, well, God, I'm giving this to you. Take me to the right place, hopefully, because I know you've also heard kind of horror stories of people that have ended up in bad schools, and that's been difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a lot of like, God, I hope this is the right decision. But the whole time I was praying was like, it is not the right decision, because everything was leading up.
Right.
I really wanted it to happen. So I was like, God, if this is not what you want, please like end this really quickly, because I'm getting excited now. But like the interview went quickly, the application and everything else went quickly. The only thing, and even like the visa, like it was supposed to be delayed because of COVID and backlog of paperwork, but then I got it like 5 days before I flew.
Oh my gosh.
But I got everything, and then I was like, all right, God, I'm just going. So yeah.
Wow. Was there any scripture verse that you were leaning on during that time?
I think so. Like one I always have had in my head when I'm like terrified. I'll be like doing anything. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. It's a Psalms.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's just kind of like I was like I'm quoting on the back of my head. I'm like, okay, it's okay. But I think what's the passage? I'm just blanking on it now. This passage of like Matthew, at the end of Matthew, where Jesus kind of like saying like no matter where you go, like I'll be there. Mm-hmm. That's me paraphrasing, of course, because I can't remember the exact phrasing of the moment. My mind's going a little lost, but yeah, it was just like I knew wherever I would go, like God would be there. So I just kind of like, even if it's like not the right decision, he'd be there to catch me.
Yeah. And was it the right decision?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely, even though it was super stressful then, and once I got there, it was, yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. I remember when you got there, so you just finished your degree, it was COVID and everything, life was really, really stressful. And I remember it was like the first week or so that you were there, you're like, Hannah, something's wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? And you're just like, I'm not stressed. There's no stress. It's just calm. Something's got to be wrong. This can't be real.
Yeah, there was that.
I mean, it was stressful leading up to it and everything, but I think once you got there, it was just like the peace washed over you of God being like, you were in my timing, you were in the place.
Yeah.
Because the whole time you're just like, am I doing it right? And that's the whole reason I wanted to have this conversation, because there's a lot of people who are wondering, like, am I going the right way? Where am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to wait for God's voice telling me to jump? Or am I supposed to jump and then just trust that he's going to catch me?
Yeah.
And so I think for both of us, I think we've kind of experienced all of them, where we've heard God tell us to go places, and then sometimes we've just had to jump. And I think that's kind of been the biggest lesson that I learned last year and then coming into this year, is to just take the leap and to stop delaying and to stop waiting, because there's never going to be a perfect timing, and there's never going to be like everything, all the cards falling into place at the right time, being like now. It's like, if you're looking for that, you're going to be looking for a long time. And so yeah, that's something God's really been teaching me, is like, look, if you are in my will, if you're following my word, if you are looking to live your life after me and to follow me, then I'm going to provide wherever you decide to go. And he has.
Yeah. I think that's the thing too with like the church, especially right now. They like the way they say, like the way they phrase things puts it where like you're gonna see this grand like thing in the sky. You're like, here's the rainbow after the flood, you know, kind of thing. You're like, that's the, like, you're just gonna see some symbol, you're gonna know right away,
Right.
that like, oh, I'm doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes it happens,
sometimes,
but not all the time.
we really emphasize that though.
We do.
Like, we're like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen every single time. And I feel like that makes it really hard for us when we're doubting and we're like very insecure people, when we don't see those signs. Like, for me, especially like with moving and coming, like there's still so much I don't know what I'm doing at all. Like, I mean, I call you every day. I'm like maybe I should just change. Like, but like coming and getting ready and everything, like there was a lot of doubts and whatnot. But especially like my mom, she would encourage me of just like there isn't really a wrong decision of go to Korea or not go to Korea.
Yeah.
It's like you decide where you want to go. And if it works out, it works out. And that's where you should like keep pushing forward. But like, if you never try, you're never going to know. Mm-hmm. And I think like that whole experience was a whole of like taking a step and seeing, like, it's just like you're like kind of like tiptoeing, and you're like, okay, God, is this it? Like, and you go a little bit further, and like it's still, the door's still open.
You're like,
wider.
just checking.
Yeah.
Is this really the right path, or is there a cliff at the end of this door? Yeah.
So it's just like you're taking those steps, but you're still moving forward. You're not standing still just waiting for something to happen.
Right.
Like if you're not pushing forward even just like a little bit, like you're not showing the effort to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You're just being stuck. You're like, all right, I'm just gonna wait for it to fall in my lap. Like,
Right.
when does hard work ever just like, you have to have hard work to let it grow bigger, I guess. But like if you're just sitting there, like that's no effort's not gonna get you anywhere.
It's so true. And yeah, and I think that's why, you know, the whole be still and know that I am God scripture as well that everybody uses. They're like, oh, we're in this really tough situation. We just need to be still and know that I am God. And it's like, okay, that's true, but being still doesn't mean doing nothing.
Right.
And not making steps to go forward. And so, yeah, we can't just sit idly and be like, there's an open door there. I'm just going to wait a second, feel it out and see. It's like, no.
Wait for it to light up first.
Yeah.
You know, needs a golden halo or something.
God, give me the 3 signs. I need the 3 confirmations, the 2 witnesses and everything. And it's like, sometimes God is just like, you need to trust me. It's not any other people's opinions. It's not what they plan for me to do. It's not what they think you should be doing. It's, no, this is what God, I'm calling you to do. And that's the voice that we have to listen to. Did you feel your faith grow during this period? You must have. Was it like a tug of war kind of game?
Probably. I think for me it's more like slowly strengthening, but in the way of where like you don't know it while you're in it, but you're looking back and you're like, oh, okay, like I have more and more like peace. I think my faith now is I'm okay with the unknown and uncertainty compared to like 3 years before. I'd be like, I don't know what's going on. I'm super stressed. Like I would get physically super stressed about so much stuff, and it was just affecting me really negatively, mentally too. So I think like now, even though there's still that uncertainty about so many things, it's more of like kind of just, well, whatever happens kind of is going to happen, but not like in a negative sense, more of like giving God the control of just kind of like, okay, let's just see what you're going to do.
But that's also the way that we should live. I think it's really difficult for people though, because we live in a society where it's like, okay, we graduate high school, then we have to go to college, then we graduate college, then we need to be getting a job with our degree, and then buying a house, buying a car, meeting someone, starting. Where's your retirement? It's all of these things, and the pressures, it just keeps piling up, and it doesn't really end. But the thing is that's not God's kingdom. That's our world's teachings and philosophies and stuff, and it's not God's. I mean, he's literally saying, leave everything and just go. And you're just like, let's just take a minute, God, and talk about this. So what's that been like for you to literally leave everything and just go?
Very nice. I feel guilty for it, I think, because like, it's just, like, because it was so different. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel normal. So it's taking me a long time to be like, this is okay. This is normal. You don't need to feel guilty for it. Because like, I know this is where God wants me. Like, he opened so many doors for me to get here. He's like put me in a city and whatnot that I didn't know anything about, but was like, oh, I want to go to that city. And then like it helps like me meet so many people there, and meeting those people, it's just been like, I don't know, just encouraging, I guess, of just like lots of learning opportunities. So
yeah, I like that. I think I've just lost my train of thought.
I did too. I was like, what was I answering?
What was I saying?
I was like, there was a question, and then I blinked out on what it was.
I know, I was thinking about something else, and then my mind just went, ooh, squirrel.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
I was like, let me end the sentence because I don't remember what I was answering anymore.
No, but I think being able to let go, I think we hold on to it. We hold on to our things, and we hold on to our like comfortable lives, and we think nothing's ever going to be better, or if we're going to let it go, are we going to find it again, and things like that. And so it just goes to show that when we do follow God and follow the path that's the unconventional path, the comfort, the peace, and the I don't know, like the comfort, the peace, and even the security, I guess, kind of comes with that.
Yeah, because everyone's like, you have to have a safety net.
Yeah.
They're like, don't take chances. Because especially like in your 20s, everyone's just like, this is the time when you should be serious. This is when you should be making mistakes, X, Y, and Z. And then you have these other people who are like, no, like, you need to take the chances. And those are the people you need to be listening to. Because like, we have life ahead of us. This is our time to be making our mistakes, to learning, to shaping us, to growing us. And everyone's expecting you to be like a 4-year-old office desk worker by the time you're 22. They're like, all right, you finished college, now go straight into it. And so we're just not taught to take chances anymore. Like, and so I feel like even that affects like our imaginations. Like in our dreams, like it just dampens them and shortens them even smaller. And like with coming to Korea, like there's been like a lot of less pressure and a lot of like those, the things people don't say, but they're saying them in their head, like all of that going on of just like the society pressure, where it took me like from being away from it to being like, oh, okay, so this is my thought on X, Y, and Z. Like it just, so being away and taking the chance to leave it has helped me become more certain of myself and more like independent and maybe courageous sounds very flattering, but like bolder to do other things and not just be stuck in this little tiny corner and not being able to grow like stronger in faith and just being a person now.
It's no, seriously, we're in our 20s. We should be able to explore, to try things out, to experiment is like what I was thinking, because we don't like, I think it's like, isn't it our brains don't fully develop till 23 anyway? So why should we be expected to do so many things before we're 23? And then when we hit 23, it's like, oh, look, you're already an old maid, according to the Elizabethan days and things like that.
We don't speak of this.
No, but it's like it's this pressure of you get to a certain age where it's like you should already be arriving, and it's like, who says that, and why should we be at that place, and why can't we do all of these things? And then society kind of looks down on us, or like then calls us the daredevils, or we get to be the bad influences. Oh, stay away from them, they're the bad influence because they're living very unconventionally. And it's like, this is actually, I believe, how we should be, all believers should be living. We should not be falling into the status quo of working the 9 to 5 to doing this. Like, yeah, okay, people are called to do that work, but not everyone.
It's exhausting depending on the work you're doing too. Like, it's just, you have no time for anything else.
It drains you physically, emotionally, and mentally. And then you wonder why there's so many mental health issues, why less people are going to church, why less people are having relationships with God. And it's because we're essentially working ourselves to the bone. And it's the whole, what's not the hustle, maybe it is, what's it called, where you're just like hustling through life pretty much.
Hustle and bustle?
I don't know if it's hustle and bustle. It's like where we're just like keep running like to get everything, to be ready for retirement. Then when we reach retirement, it's like, now we can chill. Now we can do everything that we dreamed of. Yeah. And it's like, but now we're old. Now we don't have the energy that we used to. Though, I don't know. I feel like I'm like a 70-year-old on this trip. We've been literally getting up at 9:30 in the morning, not getting breakfast till 10, and then spending a lot of time.
Hey, I've been an 8-year-old since I was a teenager, so
yeah.
No surprise here for me.
No. We're just like, let's chill. People are like, what are you doing in Thailand? We're just like, I read a book the entire day.
Well, and I think for us too, like, this vacation is a very non-typical vacation to begin with. Like, it wasn't a sense of like, hey, we're going to rest and go explore a whole freaking country. It was, hey, we're going there to like meet and like enjoy each other's company versus like, hey, let's fill our entire itinerary up. Like, so we had like a different purpose with the trip together. So.
I think that's also another society thing that we kind of fall into, where we go to a foreign country, we spend all this money, and we're like, oh, we have to do everything. Like, I didn't even see the Grand Palace while I'm here.
It's literally like 30 minutes on the tram.
We haven't done that. We haven't gone to see all the different sites. I got sick the day we were supposed to go to the national park.
I was sick the first 3 days.
Exactly. But we've still enjoyed it, and we've still gone out and done stuff, and we've experienced Thailand our way. Yeah. And I'm so looking forward to making the video of you go to Thailand for the culture, and the culture is just food.
Yeah, that's basically all.
That's literally all that we've done. I think we've just done a food tour. That's what we need to say.
We did a food tour.
When people are just like, oh, what did you do in Thailand? I did a food tour.
Yeah, the food's only the reason I came here. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't come here.
No, not at all.
Just the food.
Just the food.
Yeah. What's it been like to meet in person then? From talking for 3 years straight on the phone and then being in person? Is it what you expected?
I mean, it just felt normal.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like, but we're just having the conversations in person.
Yeah.
So I think the funny part for me was just like, we literally be in the same room when we're still sending reels. We're just like, and then I like respond to it and I'm like, oh, look, she's right there. So yeah. I live in awkward for me, and I don't know if it's for you.
I think it's funny. It's definitely interesting because I knew your personality before coming, but there's been moments I was just like, oh, okay. And it feels like there's been moments where it's like, oh, it's like the end of the call. Like, where we just go quiet and we just don't talk to one another. That was last night. And it was as though we've just spent like the entire day on the phone, and then we're just like, okay, bye, hang up. And then it's like we're not there anymore, even though we're right beside each other, because both of our batteries was just like, after that heat and after.
I empty out very quickly. So
yeah.
There'd be some nights where like you'd still be talking and I was like falling asleep and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Have you noticed a difference in our personalities in that sort of case? Like, you can just get into bed, fall asleep.
No, I'm falling asleep because I'm exhausted. I take 30 minutes to fall asleep normally.
See, okay. I don't know if that makes me feel better if I'm just exhausting you then, or
not just because it's the heat.
Yeah, the heat. Okay. Yeah.
I don't do well in heat.
No.
I realized how slow I am. I used to think that I was fast. I used to think I was a fast eater, a fast changer in the morning, getting ready.
She's really slow.
For you, for your
like
speed.
Hour.
In what way?
To get up and get ready to go, you're at least an hour.
Oh yeah, no. I take an hour to get like in the morning, but that's just me getting out of bed. It's like 20 minutes, like once I'm up to like get changed and everything. It's mostly bathroom breaks than anything. I
feel like every 20 minutes, like I need to go again. I'm like, girl, you just went.
That's me. I always think if we're about to go to another place, or if we're about to get in the car, and even if it's only a certain distance, if something was to happen, I just want to go just in case.
I mean, it's good to be prepared. I just was used to being my father being like, hold it in. So I like trained my bladder to like hold it in all
Yeah, no. My dad hates going on road trips with me and my mom because we're just like, oh, a rest stop. And he's like, we just stopped.
No, I'd be like, no, we're driving at least 2 hours before we're stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think there's any like big differences besides the fact that like there's just little tiny things, but that's normal. Like I have to hold onto your bag to make sure you don't leave me.
I know. She said that I speed up when I don't know where I'm going, and when I know where I'm going very slow.
Yeah, because literally it's like through the crowd, like the mall. I didn't know where you were going, and you're just like zipping through it, and I'm like trying to grab your bag to like slow you down so I don't lose you. Because I also need to be close to people when I'm in crowds, because I just like there's too much going on, and I like will get lost. I'm a child. So like I was like having to like be like holding onto your sleeve, or like you have the back strap on it, and I found the one that had the hook, so I was like, oh, perfect. So I'm like hooking myself.
It's like I've got her on a leash.
Yeah. So that was very beneficial for me to not lose you in the crowd, because there was a couple times I think at the night market, the dinner, there was like I turned around and I was like, where'd she go?
I'm gone. Yeah, but it was also because we were looking for food at different places.
Yeah. But it was just dark and lots of people. And I was like, I don't know
oh.
where she went, but hopefully she comes back.
It's like a location of point of interest, right? Find each other again. We haven't lost each other yet in this big city. Yeah, I know people were like warning me about coming here, and I'm just like, it's gonna be fine. And it has. I just had 2 bites of suspicious chicken in the entire time. Other than that, we've been good.
Other than that, yeah, the food's been good besides that.
We've been great.
And I'm hungry.
I know, me too. We're like, okay, lunchtime soon. Was there something that God spoke to you to assure you that you were going on the right path, or was it just all the open doors were like confirmations for you?
I think in the beginning, like a lot of people that are older than me that have like been like Christians for a long time and believers for a long time, they just like are always like, oh yeah, I heard from God. And the way they say it sounds like it's a very like they're hearing his voice. I don't really have that. I have like feelings, but not like, I don't hear an audible voice. So I think for me in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, people like pray and ask God, like, what does he think about this? And I'm like, I don't know what he thinks. Like, I'm praying, but I don't hear an audible voice, you know, coming, you know, quietly through the fields or like booming to the sky. Like, I'm not hearing either of those. So I think that's when I realized that like him answering the prayers of like, hey God, if this is not the way to go, then shut the door now. Or if it is, then keep opening the doors, because like the whole open doors for me was him being like, this is the right path for you. This is my confirmation, because there was literally like so many things that should have gone wrong with my whole getting there to begin with. That like the fact that everything did fall in place, like it was too coincidental to be a coincidence. So for me, that was like, I have to be like, okay, so I remember like he did X, Y, and Z. Remember that he did that. Remember, like that's his showing you you're supposed to go there. So I think that was like, him speaking in that way through his actions, I think.
Did you ever imagine you'd be a teacher?
No. Literally, if I had $1 for every time someone asked me if I'd be a teacher, I probably wouldn't have to be a teacher. Like, since high school, people were always like, are you going to be a teacher? And I'm like, no.
Maybe it was God like planting that seed already.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, the whole like, I refuse to be X, Y, and Z. And then God's like, you're going to do that. But like, I was never like anti-teacher. It's just been, I'm pretty sure people said about it because like I always did stuff with kids. Like I always did some sort of like volunteer, or my first, like my second and third job was like I was like coaching kids climbing. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so good with kids. I bet you could be a teacher or a great mom and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, yeah, definitely. But like with doing volunteering and stuff, and I even shadowed teachers, and I just was like, this is really cool, but I don't think I can do it. Like, so career-wise, teacher has never been on the radar for me. I'm like, I've always admired it, but I don't think I have the energy span for it. So I was like, I'm already an introvert. I already get exhausted quickly. And then I have a whole room of 20 plus kids in a classroom that I have to control, and I have to be the adult. No. And then in college, my majors was English and history. So everyone's like, oh, you're going to be a teacher. Like, yeah, no. So that was another thing with like going to Korea. I was terrified because I was like, I don't think I can be a teacher. So what the heck am I doing?
You were like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, because like I was excited to go try something new and go be in a new place. But I was like, that was another thing of like, this has to be God, because I would never do this. I would never be like, hey, let me go teach in another foreign country where I do not speak the language. That sounds fun, you know? Obviously, like super easy, right? Like no struggle, no stress. So yeah, the whole even going to Korea to be a teacher in the first place was like, this is definitely a God thing, not a me thing, because I wouldn't have applied to be a teacher. But everyone was like, Soleil, you should go be a teacher. Even some of my foreign friends, like they were like, you should look into that with ESL and whatnot. So that's kind of why I started looking into it in the first place, job wise.
So what's surprised you about the job then? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my kids. I think the thing that surprises me though is the fact that like my job is a 9 to 5, but I'm not sitting in a desk 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's the fact that like this job, I can go home and I might need a rest for like an hour, but then I'm fine. And then I can
Which is
go do stuff.
amazing.
Yeah, like back home, all of my jobs, I'd get home and I like would like scarf something down to eat and then I'd fall asleep. Like there was no energy to do anything. There was no social life or whatever. But like every time I get home, I like rest, I chill, I like recharge, and then I'm like, okay, let's go climbing, let's go meet someone,
or let's go do Korean for 5 hours or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, but I mean, that's still amazing because you are an introvert, for sure.
Definitely. There's no, I'm 99.
No, definitely an introvert. So for you to have to kind of be an extrovert the whole day with kids, using all that energy, and then how you're able to come home and chill for a bit, but then you go and be a student yourself and learn Korean, and you're really dedicated to learning Korean.
Trying.
You're doing really well. Better than my Hebrew after 13 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like it. It's much better than I thought it would be. Especially my first like day on the job where they're like, I thought they would like have me at least watch one of the classes, and they threw me out there, and then I got judged so harshly for it. I was like, excuse me, ma'am, I've only had 1 week of in-person training due to COVID, so please be nice.
Yeah.
I was crying that day. Yeah, I called my family. I'm like, this was a mistake.
Aww.
But
now you're good.
now I'm really good at like faking it till I make
There
it,
you
and
go.
I'm really good
I
at
think
like,
that's the key.
yeah, I've gotten really good at that. So I have a book. I don't even know what I'm teaching to the day of half the time, and I'm just like, all right, guys, we're learning this together. So I think the fact that I'm the only adult in the room really helps.
Helps, yeah.
Because if I was teaching with someone when I first started, I would have just hidden under them and been like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah, but it's made you be pushed out and to just be like, let's just figure it out as we go. And yeah. That's awesome though. I like that because like so many of us so often we want to fall into what's comfortable or what we know or what we're trained to do and everything. And I remember I was like, you haven't even taught a single class, and like you said, that first week or something you were evaluated and you were just like, I've never been a teacher before. I don't know what I'm doing. But you figured out, because people train for years to be a teacher at school, 4 years or something, and you're just like, I'm here, hello, let's do a class together.
And I think the thing too for like ESL teachers, a lot of the ones going out there, they're just there for the traveling.
Yeah.
They're not there to be teachers. Like I'm still technically not qualified to be teacher. But like the thing is, I try and make my classroom like going there and being there. Like I wanted my classroom to be a place where it's like, because the Korean education is a very stressful environment, very stressful for students and teachers alike. There's a lot of pressure on both of them. But for English classes, you can kind of lighten up and loosen up. And so I wanted for my kids, I know how much expectation is on them. So I wanted the classroom to be like, hey, you're still learning. But I want to show you that it doesn't have to be stressful and like forced on you in a very Korean style manner, I guess. So like I still care about them. I can only teach you ABCs, I'm sorry.
I still need that sometimes. Still need your help with my spelling. But so have you been able to travel?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, a lot. I get like a whole month of vacation to take off a year. And then I get like the national holidays in addition to that. So there's like long weekends here and there.
What's life in Korea like?
Very comfortable.
Really?
Well, because like, for example, like it's got its pros and cons for sure. But for the pros is everything's very accessible. Like if I am wanting to go visit someone, I can just book a bus or a train and it's very accessible to get there, versus if I'm back home in America, I need to at least have a car. Like you have to have a car, but Korea, you don't need a car. I don't have a car. So that's been like very like, wow, city life. I mean, I lived in the city before, but like I had a car.
Yeah. city life in America is still very different from city life in Europe or Asia. I mean, even here, we have used cars a lot for taxis and things, but
and everything's open up late there, so I can go study at a cafe until midnight before they close, and I'm just like calling from home from the park and walking. Like nighttime, there's still like kids in the park at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Like there's high schoolers out there till midnight playing soccer on the field, and I'm just like, you have school at like 7 in the morning. Like I don't know why you're here.
It's a different culture for sure. I remember when we first moved to Israel, when we're going to dinner, and it was like, oh, we're going to dinner so late, it's like 9 o'clock. And the little kids are like still out and eating and things, and they're all just coming out.
I was in bed by like 8:30. Like my mom was like, "You're in your room."
Yeah, I know, it's a crazy time. But is there anything that surprised you about your life in Korea?
Surprised me. I don't know, everything. Not really I can think of surprising per se. I think, I can't think.
What's church life like in Korea? Is Christianity kind of big there? Have you found a community, or what is that kind of like being a believer in Korea?
Complicated. So when I first went, there's like a huge cult there, that like every foreigner is like basically warned of when they go there, because they do like these little spiels of being like, hey, you want to do like a tea ceremony and learn about the culture. So I was really terrified that I would accidentally go to one of those churches. So even if I went to like a normal church, I was terrified that it was the cult, and I just didn't know it because it was in Korean and I didn't know what was being said. So like there are a lot of churches, and it's actually kind of overwhelming. So because you're like, which one should I go to? Which one has a translator? Not many have translators. But from what I've seen from going to different churches there, they are very different culture from America church.
In what way?
Like it feels much more, how to say, like gossipy.
Okay.
Maybe more like a Southern church vibe kind of thing. I don't know. I'm like cause like they don't really say when something's wrong, but they just kind of pretend it's all like, oh, hey, hi. And then but then they're like, oh my gosh, like,
okay.
I don't know. Like, it just feels more toxic, I guess.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So have you been able to find the non-toxic church to go to?
I found a couple, that have been a little bit less so. So that's been nice to be able to have a little bit of fellowship. But yeah, the church culture is different. It's interesting to witness. It's cool to see like how they think things differently. But I think I've noticed like a lot of like the younger Koreans that are like our age, like they kind of tend to leave the churches there. I've noticed, because it's just like very hard for them, because you have their culture and hierarchy. That's what it is.
It's the
hierarchy, because it's very, even when they're Christian, there's still a lot of Confucianism ideals, and it makes it very hard for the younger people who are like learning more to be like a Christian and who they are in themselves. And so when they're breaking out of that mold set by the older, more traditional people, there's a lot of clashing and stuff. So that's why there's so many churches, is because they end up like leaving and starting a new one and everything like that. So yeah, it's harder for me because there's only like 2 churches in my city that offers like translating. So it's been hard to like connect, because we're all like different ages and different backgrounds, and I do great when it comes to meeting new people. So
Have you had Koreans kind of take you under their wing and help you with different things? And have you seen that kind of come into play in how you are building your own community, either in believing community or outside of the believing community?
Yes. I like basically most of the people that I know are from my climbing community. Even the people that like I know that are Christian, like I met them at climbing too. And then I would visit their churches and stuff like that. So basically everything came through climbing. Because I was way too terrified to like go in person by myself. Or like through a language community, but like that didn't go anywhere. So most of the community is met through climbing. And they have all been like super, super supportive and encouraging. And a few people I've met there that are believers, they're like, if I need something with like my visa or my house or something like that, I'm like, hey, can you help me? Because I need a translator.
Yeah.
And they'll help me with that. Or like when I had to go to the doctor.
I was going to say, when you had to go to the hospital that time.
Yeah, like
They helped you.
she took me, she's basically my adopted mom / aunt. She took me like almost every week to figure out what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
Because I was stressed trying to figure out what the problem was. And all the doctors were like, well, here's some medicine. And I don't know. But yeah, so there's been quite a few people I've met in that area. That's one of the reasons why I don't want to leave my city, is because I met those people and I don't really want to like try and start over in a different city. Because they've been very supportive and a huge blessing to know.
So those listening, get a hobby. That's the key. Yeah. No, but it seriously really is, because I've been trying to go to churches and they're super cliquey.
Yep.
Or it's just like they all know one another. So even if you go at the start, you just kind of sit down and you're just alone. And the pastor will come over and say, hi, how are you? And stuff like that and things. But you still just feel like an outsider. You're just sitting there and you're just like, I know people, but they're all talking to their friends or they're all doing this. And I go and try and join the conversation. It just never happens. And so I was like, what's the point of even going? And so, yeah, you definitely do have to find the things that you connect with. So that way you have that point of contact outside of church, because it can be a really awkward place.
It's very awkward for me. So going in Korea has like made it times
well, especially
10.
with the language barrier as well.
Yeah.
That makes it all the more difficult, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was already stressed going back in America too. So going in Korea, I was like, times 100. Like,
I don't know. I feel like I would enjoy it, because I'm more the extrovert though. So I could probably go and talk to people more. But at the same time, it's still a cliquey place where you're just like, I'm new here. I don't know. Let me just see what you're all like. I like when you meet in the wild, I like to say. Like on the plane here, I started talking to the guy sitting next to me and we're just having this whole conversation. Then we met them in Chiang Mai. Excuse me. And I was like, run! And they're like walking and they're just like, who would know us here? They turn around, they're like, oh, it's you from the plane. I'm like, it's me. Yeah.
when I think like even the people I've met at that church that I'm like relatively friendly with or on good terms with, I have more real faith conversations with the people I met at climbing who are Christians that I meet up with. And I'm like, hey, let's go get coffee or whatever. I have more of those deep conversations with them than I do with the people I meet for church. And I'm like, hey, do you want to grab coffee? It never goes very deep. And I try and I'm like, but it just, there's no same connection. And it's very weird for me because I'm like, they're super sweet people.
How interesting is that? Where you have those conversations outside of church environments and zones. Have you been able to share your faith with others?
Not really. No, not really. There have been a couple, well, my foreigner friends. Yeah, with my foreigner friends. Not with Koreans, but like I'll talk in a little bit like to certain Koreans and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm Christian. I'm like, wait, what? And, but they're like, okay, that's cool, whatever. But like I think recently more like the foreign friends that I know, I've had some more faith conversations about like just kind of questions and whatnot. So, but like because we don't always live in the same area, those conversations are very like little bits and pieces here and there. Right. So it's been hard to like have them for very long.
Yeah, but it still seems
just little. Yeah, like so I think that's encouraging is like they're asking questions because they're honestly wanting to have a conversation versus like, you know, very judgmental. How dare you? Yeah. You know, kind of conversations. So with them, with my foreigner friends, there's been more conversations, especially the past year. I'd say there was more about like me being like, oh, I gotta be ready to answer these questions. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle because they're like people who are like religious backgrounds, but they're not Christian. So it's been very interesting because I'm like, this is a new territory. I don't know how to answer this. Like,
has it kind of not changed the trajectory of how you study the word and pray and things, but has it changed how you go to God and spend time with him as well?
I think like there's been a few interactions with people, believers and non-believers, where it's just kind of like, it reminds me who I want to be and like the person I want to be seen as.
Yeah.
And not in the sense of like, oh, I have to be seen as a good person. Like
Right.
that's not my goal. But like I'll meet people, and there was this like one conversation I had with this person, and we talked maybe like once and followed each other on social media, and that's been kind of it. But our first initial interaction was me struggling and just kind of commenting online and be like, oh, it's been rough. And then they were giving this encouragement and feedback and just like this prayer. And I was just like, I was pretty sure it was very spirit-filled prayer, because I was like, oh my gosh, like you kind of, you know, those conversations you have and you're like, oh, I can feel like you are filled with the spirit, and it just makes you excited. Yeah. And makes you like want that. Yeah. I was like, that's what I want to be. Like, that's the person I want to come off as towards other people. So those instances have just kind of been like, hey, this is what you want, but it doesn't just happen. No. Like, you need to be on a personal relationship. So I struggle for sure, but I think this past, towards the end of last year, like kind of going through the whole church struggle and whatnot, because I was really struggling with a few things about like going in person, because there's a whole cult chase down thing going on for a little bit.
Yeah, that was intense.
So I couldn't go to the church building after that, because I was just
stay away from the people in white on Sundays.
Yeah, so I just had to tell the people there, I was like, hey, I can't go for a little while, because I'm like, I was getting so anxious, I was like having to run away to the bathroom and like calm down. And then I couldn't focus during the sermon. So it was like one of those things where I was like, I can't tell, is this social anxiety? Is this spiritual warfare? Is this God saying don't go? Right. There was so much going on, and I still don't know. But I feel like God used that to be like, hey, I want to draw you, just you and me. So it's been more of like, throughout the week, I've been doing my own personal devos in a different way that should have been something I've been doing way earlier, but like me figuring out for myself, I think is probably the best bet and like the best result in the end. So I've been doing more personal, just like reading sections at a time and writing it of like what I think God wants me to take out of it. And that, I feel like, it's been helping my faith a lot more, of me like retaining it and being like, how can I apply this to life? Yeah. And like, I've had conversations that I'm like, hey, that's what I was just writing about in my devos the other day. It's like, wow, look at that. So that's been encouraging. So
yeah, it's really cool how God kind of even brings us out of our environments and things to teach us. I have a friend, and he's volunteering in Israel right now, and his faith has really grown since he's been there, because it's just him and God. There's no friends, no distractions. There's war going on, so he's not able to go out like normally you would when you're a volunteer. So he's had a lot of time to just really study the word again. And he said how that's been the biggest takeaway from his trip, is having that one-on-one time. And I think we all should have that one-on-one time, and it comes in different forms. I mean, sometimes it comes through sickness, sometimes it comes through isolation. There's all these different things, and I think that's also why the trials can be so good, and that they're so refining, because they really do bring us, either it's me or it's me and God, and which one are you going to choose, and how are you going to get out of it, kind of thing. And that comes when you take those leaps of faith as well, because you're just like, this is what society is telling me that I should be doing, that I need to be doing, that I should be focusing on. This is the secure, comfortable path. And then there's this one that everyone is saying, don't do it. That's crazy. This doesn't seem like, how is this lining up with your future? That's the big one. That's the big one. Is of like, so are you going to be a teacher the rest of your life? It's a whole thing.
Like, how is teaching English going to help with whatever you're doing next?
Yeah. And that's the big thing of like these questions that we're getting asked so many times. They can be very discouraging, and they can be very grating, because you're just like, God, how do you show people what you're showing me, or explain it? Because honestly, this is, again, we should all be having this mindset of being like, God showed me that this is the path I should go. That should be enough.
Yeah.
That should be enough
Yeah.
of being like, that's incredible. So your future's set in his hands. But it's not.
No. Well, even if they're like, even if you say it, like, well, that's not good enough for me. Like, we need the whole congregation
them
to believe
more.
this.
And I have such a hard time answering that because they're just like, well, what are you doing with your life? And I'm just like, well, I'm God's typist. And they're just like, what does that mean? I'm like, it means a lot of things.
Well, like, that was in the New Testament, too, with, like, Paul. I forget where it was, but it was the whole, like, they were in the congregation, and there was, like, it was, like, the daughters that were, like, prophesying about what was going to happen when he returned. The entire church was like, oh, that means you can't go, you can't go, you can't go. And Paul's like, no, God's telling me I need to go.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, I feel like that scene in itself is something that we, as a church, need to be remembering. There's so much in scriptures, Old and New Testament. Like, there's so many in the Old Testament, too, of where it's just, like, the entire world is like, what in the world are you doing? Like, how can that be God?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for you prophets to be acting like this when this is not a civilized behavior, but you're saying God's telling you to do this. But then, like, us looking back at it now, we're like, wow, they were so spirit-filled. They knew what God was doing. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's what's happening right now, but modern times. They don't believe it, though. It's just...
It's true. Well, it's always the prophets, the disciples, they are never, they're not accepted in their hometown or even in their time. Like, look at all the great philosophers, artists, different things like that, and how they were so underappreciated in their time. And then after they died or something happened, then they're just like, wow, look at that Picasso painting.
Yeah.
It's priceless now. And it's like, it wasn't back when he was alive kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think so. Then this is going to be the final question because I know we need to get lunch because my stomach is going grrrg.
Probably holding on the microphone.
But the biggest question then is for viewers is then what encouragement can you give listeners who are struggling to not be influenced by the status quo or people telling them that they should settle down roots, that they should go in this direction, that this is the more stable path. With our lives being as unstable as they are, but also as secure as they are, what encouragement can you give listeners today?
Ooh, big question. I didn't read this one at the end. But I think, like, honestly, with there being so much uncertainty, like, if you're scared to take the steps of faith because of what everyone says, like, yes, take it with a grain of salt. Take everything with a grain of salt. Listen to their wisdom, listen to their thoughts, but, like, don't believe it. Like, don't take it at his word as being like, oh, this is God speaking. Like, because scripture says, like, test what the scriptures say. Test what people are saying and see if this is God. So, like, if you have different callings that you feel like God has given you and you don't know which one is for the right time, like, take the steps forward and see what happens. Don't be afraid of the failures of what people are saying. They're like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. You might regret not taking it, like, that chance for the rest of your life. If you're going to regret not trying, then you need to try. Like, you can still learn from your failures. Like, your failures will shape you. It might hurt. Like, it'll definitely hurt. Like, can't promise it's going to hurt. But, like, even from your failures, from your successes, like, if you don't try, then God can't do anything with that.
Oh, I like that. That's good. If you don't try, God can't do anything with that.
So I think that would be my tidbit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to piggyback off that as well and just be like, take the leap of faith. Don't wait for God to finally tell you to go. If it's been on your heart to do something, that's already him planting the seed in you to do it. So start taking those steps like Soleil did when she was just like, I want to travel. And then she's like, maybe I'll go and be a teacher. And so she just put those seeds out. She's like, I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to get it. It's a very competitive thing. This is a very strange time. And just every door kept opening. So take that leap of faith. Do the things that make you scared. And also just trust God to catch you when you jump. And when he's on the other side, he's always going to be there with his wings to cover you. And even if you fail, even if it doesn't work out, he's still got something to teach you on that journey. And so, that is our encouragement for you today. And I'm so glad we got to do this episode. I can't believe we did it. We have not practiced. We just kind of did it.
I was like, I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to ruin it.
I was like, this is going to be so weird. I'm normally sitting here like, okay, gotta memorize this and look at my notes and everything. And I'm just like, no, God, let's just flow.
Yeah.
And we're good at flowing. So thank you.
I'm very good at that. Faking it till you make it.
Woo! But thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Soleil. Is there any way people can follow you? I know you have a travel blog that you're or a travel Instagram lifestyle kind of thing that you're.
It's lifestyle because life's chaotic. You can't stick with one thing.
It's true.
Yeah. I have a blog and an Instagram where I kind of just randomly upload bits and pieces, everyday adventures with 3.
So it's 3 instead of an E, everyday adventures, right? And you've got a blog, so you can find it everydayadventures.com.
Yes.
And then also just do @3 everyday adventures to find her. Yeah. Well, I cannot wait to enjoy this last day with you.
Don't make me sad.
It's not the last day. It's not the last. The first of many adventures together. But I'm just grateful that we had this time together to finally meet in person and to film this so everyone else could meet you and see how special you are as well. And also just be encouraged today, because I know so many people who are falling for the lies that they need to settle, that they need to stick to the status quo, that they need to just hold off on their dreams until it's more financially stable or
just safe in general.
Yeah,
I left in the
safe.
middle of a pandemic. That's the apocalypse, and
Yes.
North Korea right next to me. So
exactly. It's time to live on the edge, people. So anyway, thank you again. And if you've enjoyed watching this episode, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, follow button below, and tune in to all of our other episodes that we've had in the past and what are coming, hopefully in the near future, hopefully when I get home and war doesn't all break out, so I have time to edit all of this. Yeah, but anyway, until next time, God bless. Bye.